Hey everybody, good evening. Welcome to my very first live stream of Julia's Cafe podcast. I'm going to stumble, I'm going to stutter. Eventually, we'll get this all together. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to subscribe so I can see what we're talking about in the chat, please do in order to chat with me or if you have any questions or comments or anything about any of the stories that I'm going to talk about this evening. So there's a few of us in here this evening. Hopefully more will join as I get going with the stories for today. And the first one will be a big rig crashes off of I-55 overpass and lands on the railroad tracks beneath. This is, as you can see, a container. The tractor has flipped upside down, of course, spilling and crushing the container and spilling all of its contents everywhere. Now, mind you, a lot of times these containers are a lot heavier. They're permitted for being heavier because of then they go to the rail yard and are put on the train, so they could be permitted for a lot more than 80,000 pounds. A semi-truck driver survived after crashing off an overpass in Illinois over the weekend. The crash occurred shortly before 10 a.m. on December 22nd on northbound I-55 in Plainfield, Illinois. According to the local fire department, crews found the semi off the road and rolled over on the train tracks beneath I-55. The truck driver was able to get himself out of the cab. Firefighters say that the truck driver was transported to the hospital for treatment for non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of another vehicle involved in this accident refused treatment. The truck's cargo of chicken broth and disinfectant wipes spilled out during the crash. The incident shut down traffic in the area for an extended period of time. Crews worked to clean up the cargo spill and remove the crashed semi-truck, and the crash was still under investigation. And I want to have a shout out to Sugar Sobriety. Hi, thanks for joining. I greatly appreciate you taking a peek and seeing what I do as far as a weekly podcast. So thank you so much. And our next story is a truck driver's body is found in a California aqueduct. A truck driver's body is found in his rig submerged in a California aqueduct. The California Highway Patrol is investigating a death discovered after a submerged truck was removed from an aqueduct. This happened December 22nd. In Kern County about 5 o'clock in the morning near Grapevine. A commercial vehicle is traveling northbound on I-5 north of Grapevine when for unknown reasons at the time traveled to the right, leaving the roadway. The vehicle traveled uncontrolled through an open field, crashing into the aqueduct. Local news agency report that the driver was found passed away in the cab when crews removed the vehicle and the water from it. The identity of the truck driver has not been released. If you have any information, if you saw this truck going through and crashing into the aqueduct, you can call the Tejon area California Highway Patrol at 661-248-6655. That's 661-248-6655. And I know I have to slow down a little bit because I do talk fast. So it's only about 15 articles. This live stream this time will be relatively short. I know it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, excuse me, that everybody wants to still chat with friends and play cards or watch football or whatever we're doing. So let's get the next story pulled up. But the cops are seeking a suspect accused of threatening a tanker truck driver with a gun at a Louisiana Circle K. The Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff's Office is asking the public for help in locating a person who allegedly threatened a tanker truck driver at a gas station back around the 5th of December. This was in Hammond, Louisiana. A tanker truck driver was attempting to access the gas tanks at Circle K on Puma Drive, asked a man to move his vehicle from the pump. That man reacted by verbally assaulting the truck driver, then pulling a gun from his car and waving it around to the driver while arguing and threatening him, said the officers. Police say that the suspect was seen driving a recent model white Ford pickup truck with an aftermarket black toolbox and an aftermarket black rims. If you happen to know who this person is, you could call the Detective Nanny Criminal Investigations there in Hammond at 985-902-2017. Again, that number is 985-902-2017. Can't be running around whipping guns out and everything when we're trying to do our jobs. So that's just like a bunch of horse pucky as far as I'm concerned. And in next news, a new collapse is delaying the opening of I-40 in North Carolina, says North Carolina Department of Transportation. They say that reopening a stretch of the interstate damaged by Hurricane Helene has been delayed after a part of the roadway collapsed. This story was wrote on December 23rd, so it was the previous week. I-40 at North Carolina on the Tennessee line was scheduled for reopening this month in January after the roadway sustained severe damage during Hurricane Helene in late September. Officials said on Friday that an additional chunk of asphalt fell away from eastbound lane of I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge, or we call it, truck drivers call it just the gorge, delaying the reopening of the interstate. The cause of this new roadway collapse was blamed on wet weather and freezing and thawing conditions. Hot, cold, hot, cold. We're expecting to get rain here. I'm in North Mississippi, and we're expecting to get rain Sunday and then dropping down to 21 degrees. And my favorite brother is in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Well, maybe not this time about Santa visiting or asking truckers to help him out this year. I know there's always the Christmas wreaths that they always do. But maybe Toys for Tots with Marines. I'm not sure if the truck stops are still doing Toys for Tots or not. But good question. Back to the story. Is unfortunate situation, said Division 14 engineer. It's a new hurdle that we have to overcome in order to provide a safe facility for the traveling public, meaning patching that stretch of highway, and that looks like a pretty good chunk of roadway that's fell out. We would like to open the corridor as soon as it is safe for us to do so. We know it's a critical route for folks who live here and visit here and travel through here. And then you could visit all the North Carolina route detours and routes that they have. I will also have a post on my website for like going up 77 instead of going across 40, go up 77 and back down 81, like up through Winston-Salem and then come back down 81 through Knoxville if you're going to be traveling through North Carolina at all. And next up is the sheriff says a semi-truck driver misjudged the railroad bridge only at 55 miles an hour. Really? The sign on the bridge says 1310. So, thinking the railroad trestle says 1310, most rigs are 13.6. But if you look how close he is to the guardrail, a lot of times those bridges will angle like this, and so on the shoulder is like 13.4, but toward the middle of the road will be the 13.10. The Lancaster County Sheriff's Office shared details of the Sunday night bridge strike that occurred near Lincoln, Nebraska. They were contacted around 11:30 at night on the 22nd for a crash on Highway 6 west of Lincoln. Been there. The traffic was diverted eastbound off onto I-80. And he hit it so hard that he flipped the whole rig over, truck, trailer, and all. The driver misjudged his cargo height compared to the low clearance bridge. As you know, that's a railroad bridge. He was traveling about 55 miles an hour and almost came to a dead stop when he hit the bridge. He hit it so hard that he just laid the whole thing over. And according to other photos, the container and all is completely taken off the chassis. That was another cargo container. But even though the bridge says 1310, so, you know, what do you do? I would creep under it, but you're wondering if they didn't, excuse me, I gotta fix my slipper. Wondering if they didn't raise the road sometimes, like in Chicago, they'll raise the road and then they won't change the signs on the bridge. So I ran into that too. And for Miss Sugar Sobriety, if you don't know, just to give you a little background on me, I am a 36-year veteran, solo lady driver that's been over the road for 36 plus years. And I decided to start doing this podcast to try to teach the youngsters out here the so-called right way for the trucking industry, but that really doesn't work anymore. So then I was going to do interviews and everything, and then this morphed into kind of being a news correspondent. In my first, I do an audio podcast, and then the older generation said, well, what's a podcast? I don't know what a podcast is, but I'm on YouTube. Well, so here I am now on YouTube. So I digress. On to the next story. A head-on collision on Christmas Eve leaves a tow truck driver dead and a teenage son injured. Illinois State Patrol are investigating a fatal head-on collision involving two commercial vehicles that this occurred in Kankakee County. Crash occurred around 7 in the morning on Christmas Eve near Grant Park, Illinois. Illinois State Patrol said that two commercial vehicles crashed head-on and Route 17 and Bull Creek Road after one of the drivers lost control. One of the drivers involved was operating a heavy wrecker for Ray and Wally's Towing out of Linwood. According to the company, the tow truck driver died at the scene and his 15-year-old son was airlifted to the hospital with serious injuries. Quote, "This is a sad time for our team and the families involved. We ask you to pray for the healing of his son and to bring his family some comfort in this tragic loss. May God be with our team as we work through this tragedy," Ray and Wally's Towing said in a social media post. The cause of this crash is still under investigation. Somebody did something silly. That's all I got to say. And FMCSA, which stands for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association, says no to driverless trucking companies who wanted to have an exemption from putting out reflective triangles while they're stopped, broken down, or something like that on the side of the road. So they're trying to get an exemption. And if you look real close, you can see on this Aurora truck the cameras that it's supposed to be a driverless truck, even though there's supposed to be a driver behind the steering wheel. They are saying, no, you need to have reflective triangles out if you're broken down. That's part of being safe on the highway. They denied a request for the regulation exemption from a pair of leading autonomous trucking companies. They announced its decision to deny a request for exemption coming from driverless trucking companies Waymo and Aurora. Those companies asked for relief from regulations related to requirements to place specific types of warning devices, namely the triangles, emergency reflective triangles, or at least 6 fuses or 3 liquid burning flares at prescribed locations around a commercial vehicle to warn that they were stopped on a travel portion or shoulder of the highway for any cause other than necessary traffic stops, and requirements that lamps on CMVs be, the lights be steadily burning. They said that the two companies stated that the warning device requirements were not feasible for autonomous trucks without a human on board. As far as I'm concerned, hold the phone. Oh, hey, Dax. Yes, we did meet a couple of days ago. Thanks so much. You did tell me you were going to pop on, so thank you. Sorry, I digress again. But hold the phone. If you heard about Dax, if you heard about this, driverless trucks, they are supposed to have a driver behind the steering wheel. They cannot be completely autonomous. All the states are voting against having a complete autonomous truck, meaning driverless truck. So, yeah. Specifically, the agency said that Waymo and Aurora did not provide enough details about the cab-mounted warning beacons, and they failed to demonstrate an equivalent level of safety for cab-mounted warning beacons. Should applicants or future applicants provide sufficient details about proposed alternative warning devices? They note that industry-wide exemptions are not the norm, and they grant them only on a very limited basis. So, just because you don't like part of the law doesn't mean that, you could turn around and say, well, I'm not going to do it, so we're not going to, I want to have an exemption. Wrong answer. Wrong, oh, well. I know, I try to laugh. And next up, a Laredo man is indicted for smuggling 101 people in a locked tractor trailer. Yeah, you're right. Autonomous trucks are garbage. I completely agree with you there, Dax. A Texas resident is facing charges related to a large-scale human trafficking attempt using a semi-truck, say authorities. Juan Manuel Aguirre, 49, of Laredo, was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of conspiracy to transport undocumented aliens within the United States and the transportation of undocumented aliens for financial gain. The charges stem from an incident that occurred the beginning of December. Officials say that law enforcement spotted a large number of individuals being loaded into a trailer in a warehouse parking lot. After the white truck that was hauling it departed the location, authorities conducted a traffic stop, according to the charges. A search allegedly resulted in discovery of 101 immigrants locked inside the trailer, including 12 unaccompanied children. The charges further alleged 2 reported that had difficulty breathing and feared for their life due to the conditions of the trailer. Aguero faces up to 10 years in prison for each of the 3 counts and fines of up to $250,000 if he is convicted. The case was investigated by Homeland Security, FBI, Texas Department of Public Safety, Border Patrol, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, DEA, and the local sheriff's office. I'm like, good Lord. And one dead in a stabbing at a Memphis distribution center. And if you look real close, you can see which distribution center in Memphis this is. Kroger. I've been there countless times having to unload groceries. I'm like, wow. The Memphis Police Department is investigating a fatal stabbing at a distribution center that occurred last week Thursday, day after Christmas. Officers responded shortly after 9 a.m. to the Kroger Distribution Center located in Bledsoe Cove in Memphis. Upon arrival, they found one male deceased at the scene. Police confirmed that he was stabbed. A second male was taken into custody. And they said this was an ongoing investigation. If you know anything about it, please get a hold of Memphis police. They didn't leave a number or anything. But I'm sure with all the cameras, and a lot of trucks have cameras now, somebody caught something. Let me get my... Hopefully I don't shut everything down while I'm trying to flip screens here. And thank you so much for your patience in all this. And in this story, as you can tell, a 19-year-old truck driver in Iowa tried to outrun a train with a heavy cotton-picking hopper-bottom trailer pulling grain. He was cited after he struck a passenger vehicle and a moving train a day after Christmas. This happened around 9 o'clock in the morning in Amana, Iowa. Police say that Jackson Von Assen, 19, was operating a 2007 Kenworth going southbound on Highway 151 when he failed to notice an eastbound train approaching the railroad crossing. How about you trying to outrun the damn thing? Even though the flashing lights were going, I'm sure the horn was sounding, there was a pickup truck waiting for the train. Oh, no. He was in a big-ass hurry. He was going to turn around, and they said that he sideswiped the pickup truck that was stopped at the railroad crossing, as I just mentioned, and then hit the train after that. Luckily, he wasn't hurt. But as you can see in the photo, the Kenworth is completely obliterated, and it's a total loss. So I'm sure the owner of the Kenworth is not at all pleased. Plus, he had to tow it back, so that's a wrecker bill. Then, if was he loaded or empty, if he was loaded, somebody else got to come and pick up the load to get the grain delivered. And then there's damage to the train. I'm sorry I didn't put any more pictures up here, but part of the motor is up underneath that car that you see there in the photo. So, yeah, it was a hell of a mess. And then now USDOT announces fine increases for trucking regulation violations. And they're pages worth. I'm not going to list them all here, but a lot of it is for out of service violations. We're having a lot of illegal immigrants or immigrants coming in from other countries driving trucks now, or 15 guys in one truck, and they all look kind of similar, and they all have one CDL, and they just keep passing around between the drivers. Yeah, they're finally, after all these years later, and I retired over the road, they're finally starting to catch up and cracking down. So in this article, it says truckers who violate federal regulations will pay more after officials announce the annual increase in financial penalties in order to keep up with inflation. Yeah, okay. The Federal Civil Penalties Inflation Adjustment Act of 2015 requires all federal agencies, including FMCSA, to increase fine amounts every year to account for inflation in order to maintain their deterrent effect. If there's so much of a deterrent effect, why are people still doing it? My question. The new fines will be effective immediately upon publication in the Federal Register on December 30th, so it should already be there. The list is, the existing penalty for out of service, meaning that a law enforcement official puts you out of service, that you cannot drive the truck because something's the matter with it. That fine for the driver went up from $2,304, just $64. But for the company, went up to Appendix A, out of service, requiring or permitting operation of a commercial motor vehicle by a driver, from $23,048 to $23,647. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, it's just like 3 pages worth of fines. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure holding your phone up to your ear has went up. Any kind of, because it was like $2,500, I think, to the driver to hold your phone up to your ear instead of having a wireless headset that we had to wear. I don't know if I have mine with me here. No, I don't. Anyway, and then to the company is like a $25,000 fine. So I'm sure that fine has went up as well. And another sinkhole. So the other one was on I-40. This one is on I-80. And that's in New Jersey. And it's the black circle that you see there on the screen out in the woods. That isn't shade. That's a sinkhole. So a section of Interstate 80 has been shut down in northern New Jersey after a sinkhole opened up on the shoulder. The sinkhole was first noticed on December 26th in eastbound lanes of I-80 near Warrenton, New Jersey. According to the local news, Thursday morning, evaluating the sinkhole along the right shoulder of the interstate, but a timeline for repairs has not been determined. Traffic is currently being diverted off of the interstate as the New Jersey Department of Transportation evaluates the situation. It looks like somebody took a backhoe and just dug out a big old hole at the side of the interstate. Kind of funny, actually. But you wonder where the heck all these sinkholes are coming from. It's, kind of weird. This driver survives a heart attack over the road and is a Christmas Eve miracle. A truck driver from Alabama says he has a new perspective on life after surviving a massive heart attack while driving on Christmas Eve. He's only 38 years old. Mr. Brown of Alabama was hauling a load of highly flammable materials in New Jersey on Christmas Eve when he started to feel that something was wrong. My hands went numb first, then it started traveling up his arms and then into his chest. It felt like an asphalt truck was over the top of me and asphalt was being poured on top of me. So he felt really, really hot. Because heart conditions run in his family, he called 911 immediately. I told them I'm not 100% certain, but I think I'm having a heart attack at the moment. Brown was taken to the ER where it was discovered they had 100% blockage in his heart. He was aware enough with the symptoms to come in appropriate early time. He arrested more than once where he needed to be brought back or defibrillated. said the doctor. Doctors were able to save him and get him to stable condition, giving Brown an opportunity for a new perspective on life. It's the greatest feeling knowing that I was flatlined less than 2 days prior to this article being written, and I'm still here now. It's going to make me put things into perspective and cherish things a lot more, he said. God works for the betterment of us even when we don't realize it. He's still working for us. Doctors say that Brown was likely to be able to head home to Alabama last weekend where he could reunite with his 9 children. Dang. And this article was written the 27th. So hopefully he made it home for today and for the New Year's. And I really don't want to leave this first live stream on a sad note, but as you saw at the beginning of the show, or if you saw the live stream, this gentleman's wife wasn't so lucky. A truck driver's wife perished in the sleeper during a Tyson plant explosion. A truck driver's wife was killed at a Tyson Foods plant while sleeping in the cab. This happened day after Christmas. And from what I understand, with updates that the couple were from Las Vegas. According to a statement from Tyson Foods, a boiler exploded inside the facility, causing a portion of the building to collapse on top of the semi-truck parked outside of the building. Well, it's not going to be parked inside the building. I think they were backed up against the docks waiting to load. The wife of the truck driver was sleeping inside of the cab in the bunk at the time of the explosion and was subsequently crushed in the collapse. The truck driver was inside the building at the time of the explosion. It's unclear if he sustained any injuries at the time of the writing of this article. Next week's show, I'll be giving you updates as I get them in. He was reportedly speaking with law enforcement outside of the building following the explosion. The driver reportedly was unsure if his wife had survived the accident or not. The first responders were not able to contain the fire until 2 in the morning on December 27th. But efforts to retrieve the wife's body had to be paused until heavy machinery could lift the debris off of the truck. We do have visual confirmation on her, but as far as having access to her, they didn't. The names of the truck driver's wife were not released. Her body was finally recovered around 2:10 the afternoon of December 27th. So that is very sad. My thoughts and prayers are with that driver and his family. So that is the end of the show for this evening. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death. Thank you so much for showing up. I greatly appreciate it. And y'all have a very happy new year. Like I said, this one's going to kind of be short. Now that I know it's about 30 minutes, so then maybe next time if there's more news, it'll go a little longer. Some weeks it'll be short, some weeks it'll be a little bit longer. It'll be every evening, 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. Not every evening, but every week, I should say. Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for joining. Happy New Year. And stay safe.